Something happened today that could completely change the war in Ukraine. Donald Trump has suddenly lifted the oil sanctions against Russia, leaving Zelensky in a very difficult position. At the same time, the Financial Times reported that Ukraine could face bankruptcy as early as April if Hungary continues blocking the €90 billion EU loan. And behind the scenes, something so explosive has happened that even the EU is starting to get nervous. Let's take a look at this major update from the Ukraine war. Let's go. While about 95% of the current news is focused on the war with Iran, the war in Ukraine is still ongoing, and a major shift may now be taking place. Donald Trump appears to have made a 180-degree turn and lifted key sanctions against Russia. For Ukraine, that could be a serious problem. But first, we need to look at the growing conflict between Volodymyr Zelensky and Viktor Orbán, because that situation is escalating rapidly. You probably remember that Zelensky blocked the repair of the Druzhba oil pipeline from Russia, and Hungary responded by vetoing the €90 billion EU aid package for Ukraine. For a long time, Zelensky claimed the situation was not Ukraine's fault. He argued that Russia had damaged the pipeline and that the repairs were extremely complicated. But now Zelensky himself has admitted something very different. He openly stated that Ukraine has no intention of repairing the pipeline quickly, even though it would technically be possible. According to reports, Zelensky said that the pipeline could be restored within about 6 weeks, but that doesn't mean Ukraine will actually do it. Instead, he said Ukraine would focus on other priorities. At the same time, Ukraine has reportedly refused an inspection of the Druzhba pipeline by the European Commission, which could have confirmed whether the pipeline was truly damaged. Because of this dispute, Hungary continues to block the €90 billion EU loan, and according to the Financial Times, without that loan, Ukraine could face a financial collapse in the second quarter of the year, meaning sometime between April and June. So it is no surprise that tensions between Kyiv and Budapest are escalating. For Zelensky, the situation is becoming extremely critical. But Hungary may not be his only problem, because now it seems that Donald Trump may also be stepping away from Ukraine. You might remember the strict US oil sanctions against Russia. Trump had warned several countries that they could face economic penalties if they continued buying Russian oil. One of the biggest examples was India. Back in January, Reuters reported that the United States might impose higher tariffs on India if it continued purchasing large amounts of Russian oil. At one point, the US even considered tariffs of up to 100% on Indian goods. But now the situation has changed dramatically. After the conflict with Iran escalated and the Strait of Hormuz became unstable, global oil supplies came under pressure. And suddenly the United States changed course. The US Treasury announced that India would receive a 30-day exemption, allowing it to continue buying Russian oil in order to stabilize global energy markets during the Middle East crisis. According to US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, the goal is to prevent a major global energy shortage, while the conflict with Iran continues. For many observers, this decision was a huge surprise. For years, Western governments argued that strict sanctions on Russia were necessary to weaken Moscow and support Ukraine. But now, because of global energy concerns, those sanctions are suddenly being relaxed. This could send a clear message. Stabilizing the global economy has become a higher priority than maintaining pressure on Russia. And that is a serious setback for Ukraine. Right now, Ukraine is facing pressure from 3 different directions. On the battlefield, Russia continues to capture more territory. Financially, Ukraine risks running out of money if the EU aid package remains blocked. And internationally, support may be weakening as energy and economic concerns grow. But the situation is also becoming difficult for the European Union. Reports say that Russia is considering stopping LNG deliveries to Europe completely if the EU introduces new energy restrictions. Putin reportedly ordered officials to examine the possibility of halting energy supplies to Europe rather than waiting for additional sanctions. And that could create a huge energy problem. Just think about it. If LNG supplies from the Middle East remain disrupted and Russian LNG is also reduced, Europe could face serious challenges filling its gas storage for the next winter. Some analysts say that the only real way to stabilize the situation would be a political settlement in the Ukraine war, which could eventually lead to sanctions being lifted and energy trade being restored. But that would require a major shift in the conflict. For now, we are at a critical moment. Ukraine is losing territory. EU financial aid is blocked by Hungary, and the United States appears to be easing some pressure on Russia. If these developments continue, the war could evolve much faster than many people expected. So I'm curious about your opinion. Do you think Ukraine can hold on through this year, or could the financial pressure become too much by spring? Write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss the next update.